Getting gas for my motorcycle. Gas. It puts the card in the card reader. Oh, welcome. Welcome.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. I am Chris. This is my 2019 Harley Davidson Fat Bob with the 107 Milwaukee 8 engine. Gonna be pretty much an initial review. I've got about 600 miles on the bike so far in the video. Have some clips of riding it. Have some screen footage of the stats on it, like the engine size, the price, the rake, the lean angles, all that stuff. So I don't just read it off to you. If you want to look at it, you can. If not, you can just listen to me talk about the bike when I'm riding it. Like I said, it's just an initial review, a little bit about my riding history. Started out in ATVs, that's how I learned how to shift and do all that kind of stuff, and just get acquainted with like a manual transmission on a like an off-road vehicle or a motorcycle. Obviously, it's different than in a car. Had a Suzuki GSX 500, was my first bike ever. Traded that in for that and my life away for a Suzuki Hayabusa, which is a 1300 cc and change. It's like 13 and change or something like that. It's a sport bike, big, massive sport bike compared to your 600 cc bikes. So traded that in for a Hayabusa. Then I had a Hayabusa and a Kawasaki Vulcan 1700 Classic, which is comparable to a Harley Davidson Road King, for those of you that are well acquainted with Harley Davidson and not with the Metro. It's very similar to a Harley Davidson Road King. It's 1700 and change cc, cubic centimeters. Metro bikes go by centimeters, and Harleys go by inches. I believe Indians go by inches too, because they're both, they're not Metro bikes. So, had both those for a while, no car, then got rid of the Busa. Had the Vulcan and no car. Then when I knew we were going to have a kid and start a family, I traded in the Vulcan and got a Camry. And now I'm back. And prior to this bike, I started with a Harley Davidson Dyna. It was either a 12 or a 13. It was a Dyna Super Glide Custom. Had some work done to it. Stage 1 may or may not have cams in it. The guy that sold it to the dealership didn't say anything about it. People listened to it, thought that it might have had cams. If it did, we're not sure. I wasn't prepared to shell out $400 to $500 minimum just for someone to take it apart and check it out, and I wasn't comfortable with doing that level of work. I switched out mid controls and forward controls, played with the inner and outer primary, took the clutch off, stuff like that I'm okay with. That in depth with the cams wasn't something I was ready to tackle. And I was getting rid of it anyway. I wasn't absolutely in love with the bike, so I am in love with this bike. Love this bike. There's some things I would change and am going to change eventually when I get some extra funds. It's like I said, I'll put all this stuff, but I know a lot of Harleys are going to the hydraulic clutch now in 2018 and 19. This is still the cable clutch and not the hydraulic. My Vulcan had the hydraulic clutch, so I've had experience with that. As well as the cable, and I prefer cable more. To me, at least my personal feel, I feel like it's a more, I guess responsive is the best word, a more responsive feel on the throttle. So you can feel more where it engages and disengages and where the friction zone really is and all that. To me, at least, more than a hydraulic clutch. You still feel it on hydraulic, but to me, I think the cable really puts you in tune with it. So. Other than that, the bike is stock. I have a detachable sissy bar and luggage rack for the wife. For those of you that are curious about the comfortability of the seat, I go into it when I'm riding, but the seat is decent. And as far as riding 2-up, she was on it on and off for about an hour total, maybe shortly under there. She said it was decent. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. And I had the bigger backrest for her as well, so I'm sure that obviously aids in comfort. To put in comparison, on my Dyna I had a Saddleman step-up. For those of you that are familiar with what that seat is, it's a lot of what the stunt riders that do the wheelies and stuff on the Harleys use. It's almost a 90-degree angle. It takes a little bit of break-in time for the driver, and I can only assume that it takes a break-in time for the passenger as well, which she was not prepared to do. She hated it from the beginning. So those of you that are wondering about, how comfortable riding 2-up would be on a Saddleman step-up, if you have thought about purchasing one, or if you have one and thinking about doing 2-up riding, I read mixed reviews. I read that the Saddleman was a little bit better than the Lucky Daves for 2-up, which is why I ultimately went with Saddleman over Lucky Daves. I was kind of either or on them. They're super, super similar. Price point is like almost identical as well, and obviously not comfortable for a passenger. But besides that, this bike, I do the review about it, do a little walkthrough. Like I said, about 600 miles on it, so it's just my initial review in it. I'm sure there's going to be, other stuff that comes up after my 1,000-mile change. Supposedly, after the 1,000-mile, they flush out the fluids and retune everything up. It runs better, so I'm not sure if I'll notice anything in the driver's seat for it, in the saddle, but if it does, I'll let you guys know. I plan on posting videos reviewing the gear that I use, just talking about other stuff. I was unfortunately in crashes years ago, so maybe talk about that, stuff that I've learned from it, just anything like that, doing moto vlogs occasionally when I get a better camera setup for that, doing moto vlogs, just talking about whatever, talk about maybe news that's coming about, or stuff that I do, and anything I install on this bike, I plan on doing videos on the install and kind of walking through it. Like I said, I did a decent, I'm mechanically inclined to an extent. I do some stuff on my car, some stuff at home, and the other bike I had, the Dyna, I did a lot of stuff messing with the primary cover, the inner and the outer, that I know a lot of people do not, or wouldn't even know where to start with. So YouTube is your friend, but YouTube only gets you so far. It is good, and I think it's necessary to have your books that show you the actual, foot-pounds of torque to torque things down to spec, your fluid levels, all that kind of stuff. It's necessary to have the book, but YouTube shows you, a hands-on, first-person view of things that's easier than reading it and saying, oh, well, I'm not sure what this part means, but if you see it on YouTube, oh, okay, I know that part. So, all right, without further ado, I think it's time to show you guys the bike.
Alright guys, so here I am on the Fat Bob. Again, like I said, I got the 107, and obviously as you can see in the video, I got the black one. Got a list of things I want to just kind of talk about. A lot of stuff that's generally like a in general thing for the Softails. I believe they started in 2018. Could have been 17, but I think 18. So the first one is the key fob. So I know, like my 2012 or 13, I think it was a 13 Dyna. The Dyna had a key fob where you couldn't start the bike if the fob wasn't present, but it also had the physical key where you would put it in the middle of the ignition, kind of in the middle of the tank area, and basically turn it so you can allow the bike to turn on. And without that key and without that switch being on, you couldn't start the bike. You couldn't flip the ignition switch, the switch on the handlebars. Like I said, either 17 or 18 they started, at least all the Softails. I'm not sure if any other models are included in that, but there is no ignition, a physical ignition switch like for a key. There's no key switch. There's a key for the fork lock still, which you got, but there is no physical key in the middle of the tank. Instead, what there is the key fob. It's just basically like a wireless system. If your key fob is, I think, within 15 feet of the bike, it will allow you to start it, and if it's out of 15 feet, it will not allow you to turn anything on. That includes like the standby mode where like your gauges and your lights are lit up. It just won't do anything. If you have a built-in alarm, it'll trigger the alarm. If you set it off, I believe, if you just have the lights like I do on this, it'll turn on all the lights, blinking and everything, to let you know, hey, your key fob's not present, and it will not start. Now, I do believe if you have the code, you can still start it that way, just like normally. Okay, the second thing is the disc brakes and the ABS on this bike. So this specific bike that I have, I do not have ABS on. It is standard on all the 114 engines, and it is optional on the 107s, I believe. I did not get it on this bike. The front wheel does have dual disc brakes. Fairly decent sized rotors. Dual. The rear only has one. So far, the braking is a lot more responsive than my Dyna was, a lot more responsive than any of the other bikes I have personally ridden so far. I don't think anything I've had before has had dual disc brakes, but they're pretty good stock. Okay, the clutch on this bike. A lot of you have probably ridden on a, if you're riding a touring bike, most likely you're probably going to have a hydraulic clutch. I had a hydraulic clutch on my Vulcan Classic back in 2012, so it's not a new thing, it's been around for a while. I guess Harley is switching some of the Softail models to the hydraulic clutch. This one is still a wired clutch. It's personal preference. You'll hear people say that with a hydraulic clutch you can't really stay in the friction zone too much and there's not a lot of feedback with it, but it's all a personal preference. I've had both, I've used both, and I prefer the wire because you can adjust it to your personally adjust it better to like the settings that you want. Like when I got this bike, I clutch in and out with my two fingers. I don't use my whole hand, and that's just back from when I rode sport bikes, and that's just kind of how I learned and how I was used to it, and that's what I like. It still gives you're still holding onto the handlebars, so you're not like taking your whole hand off, which is nice when you're going, fairly quick, and you have a decent amount of torque kind of kicking you back. Instead of taking your whole hand off and using more of your back and your hips and everything, you're still locked on there with your hand, with your grip, half of it. So basically, the only downside to that is on a bike like this, where the levers are fairly large. When you do that, you have to, that clutch lever hit your other two fingers that are basically on the handle still, the grip. So how I got this bike from the factory, it was out. The clutch released out too far for my liking. So you literally had to pull it all the way in for you to get a full release of the clutch. So I adjusted that. And now it is, I still have the proper amount of play in it per Harley spec, like a width of a nickel, I think it is, or whatever. So it's still got a little bit of play. So it's not constantly engaged if something were to happen and pull on it or something, but it is better for how I ride. Now, if I had a hydraulic clutch, to my knowledge, you cannot adjust those. They're, obviously, it's a hydraulic system. It's not something you can just pull a tab off and turn it through and adjust like this one. And these bikes are pretty much all, I don't know of any Harleys recently that are not fly-by-wire anymore. For those of you who do not know what that means, fly-by-wire is basically, if you look at a bike, you can pretty easily tell if this has it. And a lot of sport bikes are now fly-by-wire also. So basically on your throttle hand, your right hand, you'll either have nothing coming out of the bottom of it, or you'll have two cables that look almost like light brake cables. Sort of, that's the best way I can describe them. So those cables, if you have a cable system, one is a return and one is a activated cable. So one cable ensures that your throttle closes and your grip returns back to, like a spring almost, returns back to your stock position. And then the other is when you open up your throttle, that's what controls your intake and opens it up. The fly-by-wire is basically, it's a wire, it's not a cable, so it's all electronic. Saw a video the other day comparing, how reliable they were. People were thinking that, it's electric, I don't want electric stuff on my bike, it can break, what happens? I don't think there's ever been, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, I would love to know, but I don't believe there's ever been any kind of history of anybody saying that there was a problem with this or having something go wrong with them. The bars, pretty much basic drag bars. They're fairly comfortable. Still haven't decided if I want to go more of an upright seating position and T-bar style with it, like a club style dyno almost, or if I want to go more cruiser style, maybe put some mini floorboards on it, and I don't know what kind of, I'm not sure what kind of bars. So, but the bars are pretty comfortable. The nice thing is that it does have this adjustable, I mean they're all adjustable, but it has a thing specifically for it where it tells you the degrees, so you can kind of play with it. Like I put it to negative, it was like negative 10 degrees when I first had it, try it. Wasn't comfortable, so I moved it back to 0, and I'm just kind of experimenting with what I'd rather have right now. Alright, which kind of ties me into the next thing, which is the foot controls. The foot controls for this guy are, Harley calls them forwards rather. Harley calls them forward controls. I would describe them as a halfway between mids and forwards. They are not... They are not super far forward like your forward controls on like a Dyna would have been, but they are also not mid like your mids on your Dynas or something would be, or like your Sportster controls. They are comfortable for me. On my Dyna, it came with forward controls. I put reduced reach forward controls on there, which just sits it out like 1.5 to 2 inches closer and higher up or whatever. And then after all that, I spent more money and got factory mids and put the mids back on there because I did not like the forwards. They were just too far forward. However, on this bike, they're fairly comfortable for me. Like I said a few minutes ago, I'm not sure if I want to go full like club style, feet 90 degrees under me, or if I want to do just leave them where they're at. Because like I said, they're not that bad. So it's really not a big issue. It just depends on what my overall look of the bike I want to be. Now the really cool part about this is suspension. So the suspension on this bike, the front forks are Jesus Christ, I can't talk. The front forks are inverted, which is a performance style thing that they did, which is another reason why this bike performs so good. But they're inverted, so that's pretty cool. Most Harleys are not like that. I think maybe the FXR is. Other than that, I don't think any other Harleys are. But a lot of people will swap forks from like Gixxer front ends and put them on Dynas and stuff like that to give you the inverted forks. The rear shock, all the soft tails, to my knowledge, are now switched to a mono shock. So the cool thing about the new models, I believe they're doing it on all the models, maybe just this and a few others, but at least this one, the monoshock has an external adjuster on it, which is really cool. You'll see, obviously you saw in the video, the little adjuster that's there. It's just like a hand knob, basically, that you can turn. And you have all your settings on there just like normal, but you can go in between, so you can go half clicks, and you can go 3/4 clicks if you want. It's just a knob, that's basically it. But it's really nice because you don't have to use the tools like you did on like the old soft tails. Like I know my buddy has a Fat Boy Low, and my other friend has a Softail Slim, Softail Slim S, Softail S, or Slim, whatever it is, the Softail. Anyway, they're both variations of Softails, and I know both of them have to have a tool to adjust their shocks, and I believe my buddy with the Fat Boy has to take his whole seat off and get it under there, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, he said. So, if you're not adjusting your shock really ever, just adjust once and you ride one up, it's really not a big deal. But if you got a significant other that rides on the back, or you take your kids on the back sometimes, or you just have a lot of luggage and you're weighing it down with bags, or whatever you're doing, it's nice to not have to get a tool. It's very convenient. Hey-o! Back, guys. Alright, left the post office, and on the way back home, I'm going to experience one of the most fun roads, or segments of a road, that we have in my area. And don't get excited, it's nothing super cool. It's just, for what we have, it's one of the better sections. It's just a kind of tight turn that if you go the speed limit, it's actually enjoyable. You don't have to, go 30 over just to have fun on it. So, but okay. So overall, I love this bike. Like I said, I had the Dyna. I loved Dynas. I love club style Dynas. That's what I wanted to do to mine originally. And everyone's complaining, oh, the Dyna's dead, you know, nothing's going to replace it. This bike is hands down so much better than the Dynas. I still love the Dynas, but handling-wise, if you're not going to spend a couple thousand and put a new, different forks or anything on it, if you're not going to do a bunch of work to your Dyna, this bike stock from factory is an incredible bike. The engine's huge compared to the Dynas. I mean, even if you have the 103, still the Milwaukee puts out better torque and horsepower, I believe, by a decent amount. But I really do love this bike. It is a fantastic bike. I don't have anything more to say about it. Like I said, the only gripes I have is that for comfortability wise for me, and it's because I'm shorter, I'm about 5'7", 5'8", it could either be, here's my thing, my hips are pushed below me, like in front of me, and that's what makes it uncomfortable. If I was leaning more, I'd be comfortable, and if my hips were below me more, I'd be comfortable. Alright, here's stage 1 of this road. Yeehaw! And then we're coming up on the second guy, which is okay. This one's more bumpy, so I don't take it as quick. The roads are in terrible condition. Here we go! Yeehaw! Alright, and that's it. That's the extent of the fun roads I have in my house. Well guys, if you made it this far and you're still watching, I deeply appreciate it. The videos will get better from the more I do them. This was kind of just my intro to the bike. Like I said, I have about now a little bit over 600 miles. This is like the third or fourth time I've tried making this video review also on the bike. I had so many issues with my GoPro just deleting footage, wound up having to do a manual software update on it. My phone video, I tried that, and my editing software is not expensive, and it would not even drop in the quality of my video down on my phone, but for whatever reason the file format was not compatible, and it's just been a nightmare. I almost said, screw it, I'm not going to do it, but I'm like, no, this is something I have a passion about. It's something I could easily do when I'm riding, just talk about shit, do reviews and stuff about things that I enjoy, because I like watching these kind of videos, so. If you watched all the way through, I appreciate it. Please comment. Well, I'll obviously like and subscribe, because that's the only way I'm going to feel good about myself when I wake up every morning. But please please comment and let me know, either what you think about it. Do you have a Fat Bob? Do you love the Fat Bob? Do you hate the Fat Bob? What do you think about the light? What do you have? What do you ride? How long you been riding? All that stuff. I enjoy the riding community. I love motorcycles. It's something I'm very passionate about, and something I enjoy. It kind of takes me away from the shit that we deal with in normal everyday reality. So. And also, let me know what you guys would want to see in the future. If you have a question about something that I'm wearing, or a bike, or something I passed, or something like that, or a part of my bike, or something that I've wanted to do, or whatever. Like I said, I have a few ideas for some topics in the future, but please let me know what you guys want to see, because ultimately, if I make something you guys don't want to see, ain't nobody gonna watch it. So, unless you guys want to see it, there's really no point in making it. Alright, guys. Till next time, ride safe. See ya.